Hey guys, B.O.L.T Shooter here with B.O.L.T Entertainment, the quiz and entertainment I can hand you. I'm really still bad about calling myself B.O.L.T Shooter. It's just B.O.L.T now. But anyways, we have to get into this quickly. I got a lot to do. I got to try to get through the other fandom histories today, on top of two other videos, so I can avoid having to worry about April anymore. Anyways, welcome to Fnaf4 Fandom History. Just to run this through you guys real quick. At this point of this point of the series, basically, no one really cared about a lot of the fandom creations. So the only two things notable right now from this that I found was when people knew that Springtrap lived from Final Fantasy 3, they made a nightmare version of him, and basically he would control plus trap, and they'd be like a duo, kind of like Freddles and Nightmare Freddy and Nightmare Cupcake slash Chica. And then the other one was the same person who created, I believe, the purple guy, the Chrome Freddy, and what was the third one? I believe he also created one other thing in Final Fantasy 2, but he basically palette swapped BB into JJ, so there was a Nightmare JJ going around saying you can find him by rarely flashing the light. It would show a Nightmare beat JJ. So anyways, that's it for hoaxes. Basically everything else fandom wise at this point is just how people perceived um, the games, like their how much they cared. Because after Final Fantasy 3, which is supposed to be in some people's minds was supposed to be the end of the series, so they really didn't want to continue because there was no questions really. Like sure there was some stuff left to interpretation, but there was no need to return back to Freddy's. Well, anyways, basically it's just I'm gonna go based on whatever I can remember. I got a page of the teasers, the trailer, and then I wasn't gonna worry about the mini games because all that stuff I can remember. Anyways, the teasers we have the basically from Final Fantasy 3. I already mentioned this at the very end of the video. Was basically there was a hat and spotlight showing the end of Final Fantasy, but then it was edited and updated, people noticed, and it would turn into, and there was a 4 in the light. Then the hat was taken, which means something was getting shown, which the next thing was where the hat went, which was Nightmare Freddy. This would just show that there's Nightmare in the background. In the source code there was 87s. This would also reveal that this at this point was known as the final chapter of Final Fantasy. It was Final Fantasy 4 final chapter. We learned about the little Freddles, and everyone didn't know if this was Freddy or Fredbear or Golden Freddy because the red lighting of this. This also gave people the idea of like the comparison to Freddy Krueger. Next was Nightmare Bonnie, same thing, Nightmare. So this is easily Nightmares. We seen the 87s in the source code. And then he posed a question due to 87, which was it me? And a lot of people's theories at the time, including 8-Bit Gaming's and Resbowski's and Daco's, are these prototypes before Spring Freddy slash Golden Freddy slash Fredbear and Spring Bonnie. Since they had 5 fingers, these were easily Spring animatronics. Let's see, or are these supposed to be previously made Springlock machines during that Fredbear era, or like Fredbear and Friends, or was these murder machines by Purple Guy? That was the theory at the time. Then we had Nightmare Chica, same thing, 87. Wasn't me. She really didn't provide much else than this was the Chica. Then there was Nightmare Foxy. It showed or me, the end of a question, and then I think it also said out of order in the background. This showed his tie. I mean his tongue, and really that's it. It was Foxy, and I believe it had 87 in his eyeball. That's where it was hidden. Next was the hat and tie something, and here in the hat and the tie, it was purple hat and tie, and it had I didn't believe people noticed that there was eyeballs in the reflection on the floor, and it also said when you brightened up, property of FRE, I believe it was, which people instantly filled out to be property of Fredbear's. And then we had Nightmare Fredbear, who said in his source code property of me, and I think it was something big is coming, and I believe everyone thought that it was going to be a face reveal in one of the teasers for Fredbear. But I believe also people found it was me or something in this text, which means I believe they already previously answered the question of who did the 87 bite of 87 in this. But the thing that I don't think people understood at this point was 87 was thrown out the window already, because of the fact that you can't have the toy animatronics get scrapped if it weren't for the bite of 87. But anyways, we'll go over why I believe this was Scott's intentions to bring back 87. Next would be Plush Trap, which is just a smaller plush trap in the hallway in a house setting. And it would also say that like some danger comes in small packages or something like that. Anyways, we're going on to the trailer. This is just going to be conjointed in the same thing. It's literally just a house setting. And then it shows that it's going to be scarier and louder. And this gives everyone the immediate reason why Scott continued. He was going to be fine with Final Fantasy 3 being the very last one, but he continued because people didn't like the jump scare of Springtrap. So, to make the fandom happy, he created Final Fantasy 4 with a better jump scare. And that's really it. That's all we saw was the gameplay, the setting. We are kind of in the same height and visual of a child. And we're in a child's room because of the toys and all that. But that's all we got from the trailer. On to the actual game. We're done with that page. On to the actual game. So we start with the mini game, which is basically we are introduced to the crying child. He's in his room. He goes and basically you start getting talked to from the Fredbear plush that's on your bed. And you can go over to the four dolls of the main four from Freddy, Bonnie, Chicken, and Foxy. And you see that Foxy's head is ripped off, and his quote from that is, "These are my friends," which instantly it kind of tells you that this kid doesn't have many friends, and the plushes are his like comfort. And when he goes to open the door to get out, he's locked in. Well, no, I don't think it's that one. No. This one he's able to get out. I believe you're able to find Mangle in the right girl's room. Then you see Fredbear on the clock. So Fredbear's goes with you wherever you go. So this might be his favorite plush, and that's exactly why it goes with you. Going into, I believe, the living room, he gets jump scared by his older brother or his dad. At this point, we didn't know who, but he had the Foxy plush. He had either a prop or the plush Foxy's head on him. Anyways, then we go into the actual night. We only get introduced to, I believe Fun with Plush Trap, which just skips 2 hours. You have to go into the actual gameplay where you have to shine the Freddles to avoid it. You see a Freddy on the bed. Sometimes you see flowers and IV or medicine, which means whoever you're playing is most likely in a hospital. This is a nightmare hallucination, and they're in a hospital. But we also got to shut the doors on Foxy, and then shine the light on the left and right hall to avoid Bonnie and Chica constantly coming down the halls. And then once you do hear the breathing, you gotta shut the door. That's basically it for any gameplay until like night 5. Um, so, anyways, after that, after 6 o'clock, we're thrown into the second one, which I believe we get the Fredbear's. We go to Fredbear's, which is basically he's crying under the crying child's underneath the table. He goes to leave, but there's a person in the Fredbear suit because you can see the head of someone in there, and then you go left, and I believe if you go back, you see the purple guy putting on the spring Bonnie suit of someone else. Like he's fitting someone else, and we see purple guy, but he closes the doors. Then going into the other room, we see Shadow Fredbear and Shadow Bonnie, which instantly gives us who the heck, where the Shadow Freddy and RXQ comes from. And then he gets closed up by Fredbear, which makes him break down again. Night 2 happens, then we go to Night 3's minigame, which is basically we have, I think he gets locked in his room in that one. It's very, very cruddy. I know he gets he gets locked in his room. It's a very crappy thing because it's kind of like I remember so many different mini games. I'm trying to remember them all. Jeez. I know. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm very bad at this. I know night 6 is the heartbeat. 5 is the birthday. 4, I believe, is him traveling from Fredbear's to home. 3, I believe he's actually locked in the spare parts room. Night 2, we have to be in Fredbear's. Okay, so yeah. So I got the first one done. Second one, yeah. Third one is supposed to be him locked inside the spare parts room where we see, I believe, Spring Bonnie with his head completely ripped off, which he's locked inside here. I believe this is supposed to say that there was a spring lock failure here, and this was supposed to be the end of the spring lock era due to someone dying, because I think we see a human skull on one of the shelves, or it could be an endoskeleton, but there's a reason for showing that. The night 4, jumping straight away from the gameplay, we go into the we are at Fredbear's, and we're actually able to leave, and we run into a few people here. We run into a kid that has a plush trap plushie, which is actually a Spring Bonnie plushie, but it says it's a finger trap, so it's most likely the plush trap as an actual toy that a kid got. Then we can go through the neighborhood, traveling back home. We run into one of the friends of the older brother, who is laughing at the fact that you're scared of the animatronics. You run into a kid with a balloon saying you come into the party. Oh, wait, it's your party, so you have to be there. You can go up at one point, and you can run into a girl that has Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica as a toy, and you can and you run into, I believe, is supposed to be either a Elizabeth lookalike, or it is Elizabeth saying, You know, they like I think stuff people into suits at night or something like that. So the rumors of animatronics stuffing people into suits are made, and then you go home, you go to your bedroom, and your older brother's hiding underneath the bed. But I believe you go to the TV before you head to your room. You can turn on the TV, and it shows Fredbear's and Friends TV show showing off Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy with Fredbear, and it shows the established date of 1983, which means this is possibly the same year that Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is happening. Then we go into night 5. We actually have different gameplay now. It's Fredbear. Now you can shine your light down the thing, but you have to be a lot quicker about it because he doesn't kill you immediately, but you literally have to scan, close the door if he's there. And then you hear laughing. He can possibly be behind you or in front of you, on the bed or in the closet. And then you can hear him shuffling back and forth between the two rooms, and you can hear him walking up them. It's very audible for night 5 or anything Fredbear or Nightmares. Next, we have the night 5 end of the night in mini game, which is basically you're at Crying Child's at his party. He gets cornered by the bullies, his older brother and his friends, and they have mask of all the main 4. They pick up Crying Child. He's crying, trying to get out, and they bring him to Fredbear and Spring Bonnie and stuff him in the Fredbear's mouth with hydraulics clamping onto his head, making the bite of 83. Weird to mention this, but we'll put it back. Then that's it for that. Then there's night 6, which is the main 4, and then at like 4 a.m. it changes to Fredbear. And you get the minigame from that, which is basically Crying Child in his dying moments, talking to the plushies as of their friends, and they basically say, "Hey, we're still your friends. Do you still believe that? That we're sorry for what happened?" Which is most likely the older brother apologizing, or all the bullies apologizing for what happened, and then it ends with Fredbear by himself, and it's different colored text, which is saying, "I will put you back together." No, it's Fredbear saying it, that you are broken, and then another color change that says, "I will put you back together." And then it's Nightmare Night. We only have actual Nightmare, which is a different color. It's an inverted version of Fredbear. And then, let's see, that's Nightmare Night. So that's night 7. Then we have the secret 2020 mode if you put that in. And then thanks to Halloween edition, we have All Nightmare Night, which is just you can put. Well, I think Nightmare Night is supposed to have main 4 and then 4 a.m. changes to Fred. I don't know. It's a weird thing. And then let's see here. Halloween edition, to go over that real quick. It's just Bonnie gets replaced by Jacko Bonnie. Chica gets replaced by Jacko Chica. Nightmare Foxy gets replaced by Nightmare Mangle, which just makes noise to where you can't hear breathing or anything. You have Nightmare Plush Trap changing to Nightmare BB, which apparently Nightmare BB is canon, but weirdly all of them are somehow canon later on. Then let's see here. Well, he's got to be canon. I think it's canon to the dream theory that I'm about to mention. Then it's let's see, Nightmare Bonnie. Oh yeah, then the Nightmare Nightmare gets changed to Nightmarionette. And that's really all it is. And then it gives some pumpkins and Halloween colorations to the mini games. And That's it. Another thing before I finish the gameplay is that there is an Easter egg during the gameplay, which is during the nights, which is that you can hear a garbled noise of in the background, which is a sped up, reversed version of the first night one call of Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Um, so, anyways, that's it for the gameplay. Moving on to how the fandom knows, just the thoughts and the story. I believe there's kind of a good chunk of ways you can interpret this. But anyways, the fandom really was kind of just confused due to 83. So it's kind of like things throwing a wrench into our perfectly sculpted timeline and all that. Sure, we got introduced to Fredbear era, but we didn't get the answers from that we wanted. We got something that extended the story more than we wanted. And it's like, at this point, with the tools you just gave us a random kid, his brother, no connection at this point to any of the series else than this just happened, and you have an additional bite now. So all it is from the first Five Nights at Freddy's 3 on understandable timeline. Now, before any of the murders can happen, you have this kid just getting bitten and then killed in a hospital and dies in a hospital from another animatronic bite, which is, it gives us the idea of two things. This could be the reason for the multiple spring lock failures in Five Nights at Freddy's 3's phone call. And this also gives us a reason for the retirement of the entire Fredbear and Spring Bonnie animatronics, and why we only have the main four. But it just gives us too much of, is this kid possessing someone? Who are these people to the actual main people? That is all it actually gives us to, if we are trying to make an actual realistic timeline to this. And then there's the actual thing that was running at the time. This is the true reason for it, is the dream theory. Dream theory is, at this point, the truth. So basically, the mini games show you and give you enough details to make up what happened for this kid to imagine, dream, and nightmare about all three of the previous games, on top of why there's these nightmares. So, one, purple guy is just some guy that he's seen putting people in the animatronics, which, this guy is forcing people into animatronics. This guy must be a very bad guy, must be a very bad man, and that's where purple guy could be the murderer in a story. Then we have, which is possibly the failures of the spring locks, which when he was locked in the parts and serves, it might be the death of someone stuck inside the Spring Bonnie suit, or both suits, which gives us the reason for multiple spring lock failures, and also the two deaths leave back the Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie, which gives us those two and why they're a part of 2 and 3. Then we see the toys around the girl. So Toy Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica. On top of, we do see Mangle in the girls' room, which gives us almost the entirety of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. If you talk to the Balloon Kid, that gives you Balloon Boy. So now you have the entire Five Nights at Freddy's 2 solved. Now you have a good chunk of where most of the stuff. That girl saying that the animatronics stuff people into suits at night. There's the whole reason for 1 and 2's game overs. And then the fact that the kid saw someone possibly die in the Spring Bonnie suit gives you complete reasoning for Five Nights at Freddy's 3. The only thing would be, why is there's these nightmares? Well, that's easily. The main 4 nightmares are just the bullies, and Fredbear being the reason he got bit could be the big reason for Nightmare Fredbear. The only thing would be nightmare, which is possibly death, the actual manifestation of death. Um, and it's just the reason he's dying is coming to reap his soul. So that kind of gives you an idea of just where it is. So basically, Five Nights at Freddy's 1. The only thing you can get from that is um, the whole reasoning behind the game, which is um, they stuff you in animatronic suits. That's the girl telling you a rumor. Five Nights at Freddy's 2, that's the girl's toys, and the mango you find in the girl's room in your house. That gives you Five Nights at Freddy's 2. The mini games are just the purple guy shoving some employee into the spring lock suit, which might scare the kid into thinking he's a murderer. So that's the reason for the mini games. And then we have Five Nights at Freddy's 3, which is just he possibly saw the spring locks kill. So that gives you a reason why. Well, he saw exactly Spring Bonnie's kill, which is why Springtrap exists, and the possibility that he saw Fredbear and Spring Bonnie's failures, which gives you a Shadow Freddy and Bonnie. And that's really it. And then nightmares are just him. The bullies are being his nightmares. The Nightmare Fredbear is the one who just bit him. So basically, the Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is him in and out of consciousness, him slowly dying. And then Fredbear's the reason why he's in this coma. We see the flowers, medicine, and all that. And then we have Nightmare, which is the absolute physical reason of the death of the crying child. So technically, at this point, we're done with the timeline. So Five Nights at Freddy's 1 gave you a concept. It didn't have much to go off of. And it gave you a good idea and a concept in mystery. So if Scott didn't want to come back to that game, you technically could have had the like a fandom just trying to figure out and make their own stories about it. Five Nights at Freddy's 2, you can't end it there because now you got all these other things like Fredbears, and so you have to introduce Five Nights at Freddy's 3, which goes over the concepts of Fredbears and introduces the end of Purple Guy and the end of all the animatronics and the souls, the 5 main souls. Else than the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 5 deaths, which are not the first 5 deaths. These are new deaths that he came back and repped another 5. Else than those 5, who may have possessed the toys, the only thing that's left to interpretation is, Elson knows, is the Bite of 87 who caused it, but it was one of the toys because the toys were retired at the end of Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So Five Nights at Freddy's 3 was the end of a story. You just had 2 details that you had to kind of, one that you had to figure out for yourself, and 2 that's left to the person to decide if those were the ones who took over the toys or not. Then Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is just either messing up the timeline to now you need another game to explain what happened in the beginning of Fredbear era, or this is just Dream Theory explaining all the games, which, since this was going to be a final chapter, the Dream/Nightmare Theory is how it was supposed to end. But then quickly, I did forget to mention during my explanation of the Dream Theory is the Bite of 87 was probably just another creation of the mind of, I just got bitten, and now it's going to be, I got bitten, so now I can call it the Bite of, not 83, but 87. It could have just been the kid's imagination. That's another thing is, when you're watching Fredbear and Friends, 1983 doesn't exactly mean it's taking place in 1983. It could be an established date, which means Fredbear and Friends were created in 1983, so that's when Fredbear's was introduced to people, and technically this actually could be taking place in 1987, and this kid actually gets bitten in 1987, making the Bite of 87. And basically, that's all it wrote for Five Nights at Freddy's 4. But oh golly gosh, we were introduced to a new concept, which was Friday Nights at Freddy's World. I want to run by this one real quick because it doesn't hold anything. This game has now been as non-canon because it has so many different things. It explains that Five Nights at Freddy's World is an alternate parallel world to the Five Nights at Freddy's world. This is top. The Five Nights at Freddy's series is topside, where the world is just kind of like the happy-go-lucky side, where the concepts are created. And it really doesn't give you anything else than the fact that all this darkness is seeping into this world and starting to make glitches and all that, and you're supposed to stop the glitches and trying to help the children or help this and that kind of recover, and that's why the world isn't. It's very confusing, but the very last thing you can actually kind of get from this is, I think, update 2, where you return to the creator, which is just someone creating a game, which is supposed to be Scott's insert of himself, making so many games and getting exhausted from it, and he wanted to try something new. But in update 2, he introduces a new animatronic that kills the creator, which we get a voice line and some eyeballs, which gives us the teasers into Sister Location. So, basically, first update of Five Nights at Freddy's World is supposed to be, basically, it's a parallel world that gets affected by the darkness of Five Nights at Freddy's 1. Of the entire Five Nights at Freddy's series. Update 2 is basically just a giant teaser for Sister Location, which I will mention this quickly. Sister Location wasn't supposed to be tied exactly to Five Nights at Freddy's. It didn't even have Five Nights at Freddy's in the title. It was supposed to be its own separate thing, but within the same universe. And sure, there might be some callbacks, but this was supposed to be its own setup story. But we didn't get that. We got Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location, which we will cover next weekend. I actually got to go get some stuff ready. I got to go ready to go deal with some stuff today. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.